What happens when a retired Navy SEAL faces off against a corrupt HOA? A fight for justice, a trellis, and a dangerous game of intimidation. But what happens next will shock you. Watch as one man stands up to an entire neighborhood association, turning the tables in a way no one saw coming. Imagine this. You've spent years serving your country in one of the toughest units out there, a Navy SEAL. You've seen it all: combat, sacrifice, the kind of things that would break most people. So, after all of that, you come home. You want peace, quiet, and a chance to be with your daughter in a place where you can finally relax. You pick a small suburban neighborhood, thinking it's the ideal spot for a fresh start. My name is insert name. And when I moved into this peaceful neighborhood with my daughter Emily, I thought I was doing the right thing. I was looking for a place where the only thing I'd need to worry about was mowing the lawn and helping Emily with her homework. But instead of peace, what I got was a fight, one I never expected. I thought my past life was behind me, but it turned out the real battle was just beginning, and the ones declaring war on us weren't enemies from a foreign land. No, this time, it was something far worse. A small group of people with petty power entered the HOA, the Homeowners Association. It started small. One day, I checked the mailbox and found a letter from the HOA. They were upset about a flower trellis that Emily had built in our front yard. It was a simple trellis, nothing fancy. Just some wood and a few vines growing over it. But the HOA saw it as an unauthorized structure. They claimed it violated their rules. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Surely they couldn't be serious about a flower trellis, right? It's not like we were building a skyscraper in our front yard. I ignored the letter, hoping it was a one-off issue. But the next week, another letter arrived. And the one after that, this time, they weren't just complaining, they were threatening fines. $200, then $400. I couldn't believe it. They were threatening to fine us for a garden structure that had been in place for months. All while half the houses on the block had bigger structures in their yards, some even with sheds and fences that were far more unauthorized than anything Emily and I had done. I didn't want to cause a scene, but the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. It wasn't just about a trellis, it was about principle. They were trying to control us for something so trivial, and it wasn't right. I decided it was time to go to the monthly HOA meeting. I couldn't sit back and let them bully us into submission. So, I showed up, and when I walked in, I wasn't expecting much. I thought we'd talk it out, show them how ridiculous they were being, and maybe they'd back down. I couldn't have been more wrong. At the head of the table sat Karen Mitchell, the HOA president. She wore her designer sunglasses inside, a smug smile plastered on her face. She was all about appearances, looking like she was too important to even be in a room full of people who were clearly beneath her. Sitting beside her was Mark Bengtson, their so-called security director. He wasn't even a real cop, but you'd think he was the sheriff of the neighborhood with the way he carried himself. I wasn't looking for a fight, but I wasn't going to roll over either. I calmly laid out my case. I showed them photos of identical trellises up and down the street, all of them bigger and more elaborate than what Emily had made. I thought the evidence would speak for itself. Karen didn't even look at the photos. She just waved her hand dismissively and said, "Rules are rules, Mr. Hayes. If you can't comply, perhaps this isn't the right community for you." She didn't care. She didn't even try to understand. But then, something unexpected happened. Emily, who had been sitting quietly beside me, stood up. She's 20, fiery, and not one to back down from a fight, especially when it comes to defending me. She looked directly at Karen and said, "You're targeting my dad because you think you can push him around. He's done more for this country than you ever will." The entire room went silent. I could feel the tension rise as all eyes shifted to Emily. Karen's smug smile faded for just a moment, and I knew something had shifted in the atmosphere. But Karen, being Karen, didn't back down. She just tightened her lips into a thin smile and looked at Emily with disdain. "I don't think you should be speaking out of turn, young lady," Karen said coldly. "You should learn to respect the rules." At that moment, Mark leaned across the table, his voice low but threatening. "Careful, little girl. You don't want to make enemies here." I could see the anger boiling in his eyes. He was used to getting his way, and Emily had just thrown a wrench in his plans. It felt like the end of the meeting, but I could sense this was far from over. This wasn't about a trellis anymore. It was about power and control. 2 days later, the situation took a terrifying turn. Emily came home visibly shaken. She had been walking our dog when a black SUV rolled up in front of the house. 4 men stepped out. They wore tactical vests with HOA compliance patched across the front. But these men weren't cops. They were just pretending to be. One of the men shoved Emily's shoulder roughly. Another barked, "Tell your dad the trellis comes down. If not, next time it won't just be a warning." My heart sank. This wasn't just some petty HOA issue anymore. These men had come onto my property, assaulted my daughter, and tried to intimidate her. This wasn't harassment. This was a crime, and I wasn't going to stand for it. Under US Code 912, impersonating a federal officer is a felony. And what these men had done to Emily, shoving her and trying to intimidate her, was battery. I wasn't going to let this slide. Not now. Not ever. I moved quickly, stepping in front of Emily and shielding her from the men. My SEAL training kicked in instantly. I wasn't thinking about what they had done to her. I was thinking about how to stop them before they did any more harm. These weren't trained law enforcement officers. These were just a bunch of bullies wearing fake uniforms. I told Emily to call 911, and I stood there, sizing them up. 4 men, sloppy stances, hands too close to their belts. They weren't professionals. They were pretenders. I locked eyes with the man holding the SUV door open. He looked like the leader, the one calling the shots. His vest had HOA compliance unit written crookedly on it, as if it had been ironed on in some basement. He took a step forward, trying to intimidate me. "You think your little princess can cry to daddy and get away with ignoring our orders?" he sneered. I wasn't intimidated, not one bit. I looked him right in the eyes and smiled. The kind of smile only someone who's been in life and death situations can give. It was the smile that said, "I've been through worse, and I'm walking away from this unscathed." The first guy swung a wild haymaker. It was slow, telegraphed, and sloppy. I ducked under it and hooked his arm, flipping him onto the gravel driveway with a shoulder throw. He landed with a heavy thud and stayed down, groaning. The second guy brushed me, arms out like a linebacker, trying to overpower me. It was a bad move. I pivoted to the side, planted my elbow in his ribs, and grabbed his vest strap. I drove him face first into the hood of the SUV. He yelped and coughed at the wind. Knocked out of him, the third guy pulled a baton from his belt. It wasn't a real police baton, it was cheap plastic, the kind you can buy at a gas station. He swung it down, but I caught his wrist mid-air, twisted it, and snapped it open. The baton hit the ground with a clatter. I didn't wait for him to recover. I moved in quickly and delivered a palm strike to his chest. He staggered back, winded, and crumpled to the ground, gasping for air. That left the fourth guy. He hesitated. His eyes flicked from his fallen comrades to Emily, who was now holding her phone up, recording the entire encounter. I stepped slowly toward him, controlled, calm. "You've got two choices. Drop the act and walk away, or keep pretending to be law enforcement and spend the night in a real jail." He froze for a moment, then bolted for the SUV. Tires squealed as he sped off, leaving his buddies behind. Emily whispered, "Dad, you just took down 4 men like it was nothing." I didn't say anything. It wasn't about showing off. It was about protecting my family. Within minutes, the real deputies arrived. Emily handed them her phone, showing them the video of everything that had happened. The 3 remaining men, still moaning on the driveway, were quickly cuffed. One of the deputies turned to me and asked quietly, "Sir, did you really do this alone?" I shrugged. Old habits die hard. But even though I was calm, I wasn't finished yet. This fight wasn't just about taking down 4 men. It was about exposing the corruption behind the HOA. And that's exactly what we were going to do. The truth came out quickly. The 3 men admitted they weren't real officers. They had been hired by Karen Mitchell. She wanted to teach me a lesson for standing up to her. What they didn't know was that impersonating an officer is a felony under 18 US Code 912, and assaulting my daughter. That was simple battery. The deputies were already on their way to Karen's house. And less than an hour later, they showed up at her doorstep, lights flashing. The entire neighborhood was watching as Karen was led out in handcuffs, still protesting, misunderstanding. She screamed, "I was protecting the community." By the next day, the HOA board held an emergency vote. Karen was removed as president. No speeches, no debates, just a swift, unanimous decision. Her little empire of petty rules and fines crumbled in minutes. As for the men she hired, the DA charged them with impersonating officers, trespassing, and assault. They looked completely different in court, like scared kids who had gotten in way over their heads. As for me and Emily, we were safe. We had protected each other. And we had won. Dad, do you think Karen will really go to jail? Emily asked later that night. I looked her straight in the eye. Actions have consequences. She wanted a war and she forgot who she was up against.